with that, I want to welcome our next speaker, who's going to share, hopefully, a good tale about like his startup success and also the lessons that he's learned that he had to pay a big price for that he's sharing. And I'm very, very glad that we have this year Lloyd Lobo in person, because he was a prior Techsylvania speaker, but we could only do it virtual, and now we can finally host him here in beautiful Cluj and show him about the ecosystem, which is always great to bring somebody from Silicon Valley. And he's truly one of the best connected people in the Bay Area, hosting conferences. He just shared that he's bringing out a book, and he's going to share about his journey and the lessons he learned while starting like a venture-backed and a bootstrap company. So he's going to share his most important lessons. So please all give a super warm welcome to Lloyd Lobo. Thanks, man.
Can you guys hear me? Awesome. I love Romania. My co-founder and my best friend, who I've known since I was 18, is Romanian. We were business partners in every project and course through university. His name is Alex Popa. And he couldn't be here, so they sent me as a sort of stand-in Romanian. But I studied engineering, and I think I passed because of him. I couldn't code, but he could, and he did all the projects. Romanians apparently are very good at software. So I'm here to share my lessons from bootstrapping to 10 million in revenue. How many founders here in the audience? How many people are waiting to hit the bar later? Awesome. So I'm between the audience and the bar. Awesome. So quick background on myself. I'm an engineer turned accidentally product and marketer. I've only worked at startups. I've never worked at a big company. My first job was in product, then went into go-to-market, started a couple companies. Most of them were venture-backed, and they failed. And when people hear failure, they freak out. So what is failure? As a founder, failure is, you can fail even if you exit, right? A lot of companies say, oh, I sold, and TechCrunch, and VentureBeat, and all of this company got acquired. Well, if the founders and the employees don't make money, then it's a failure, in my opinion. So AL and TicketLeap and all were acquired, but nobody made money. And then founded Automatically with Alex, and it was a chatbot built on top of Zendesk. We shut it down. Then did a venture-backed company, which was incubated by Bessemer, founded by Bessemer. That also failed. And then after that, bootstrap Boast to about 8 figures in revenue before we raised money. Very recently, as of 3 weeks ago, I stepped out of the day-to-day operations. Me and Alex stepped out. We put in a new CEO who used to be the CTO at Sage. And we're out of the day-to-day while still maintaining a good equity position in the company. And to me, that is more in line with success. I'll share my lessons. But a little bit about my journey. I was a refugee of the Gulf War. I was 8 when the Gulf War hit Kuwait. And I was born in Kuwait. I used to study very last minute for exams. And one day I walked into the exam and studied for math, and it ended up being geography. And I'm like, I'm going to fail. I'm in grade 4. I'm going to fail. My parents are going to kill me. It's game over. And then one day my mom wakes me up and said, I don't think you can go to school anymore. And she's like, there's a war in Kuwait. And my first reaction was excitement. Yes, my parents will never find out I failed. But then when life sank in, I realized that everyone had left, right? All the leadership in the country, everyone had left. And the community came together to rescue the country. And that's a picture of the highway of death in Kuwait, where all the cars were getting bombed. We went from Kuwait to Baghdad to Jordan and then out. And I looked around the bus, and parents, adults, they were all laughing and singing, and they were happy, but their currency was invalid. They had lost their homes and everything. And that was my number one realization there, is it's not the destination. A lot of people say it's not the destination, it's the journey. It's not the journey, it's the destination. What I found is it's neither the destination nor the journey. It's the people, it's the companions that matter. You could be on a shitty journey on the way to hell, but with great companions, you're laughing and singing along the way. 2x failed startups, right? This is kind of what it looks like. You get this TechCrunch article, and like you get a whole bunch of downloads. Like at Speakeasy, you got 10,000 users on launch, and the next thing you know, your retention sucks and your users are leaving you. It's this sort of misery, right? Like as a founder. And you feel this as a founder that, yeah, you've made it, you got users, they're paying you, then at the end of the year, they cancel, they churn. It's like this constant roller coaster of hell. And my life across that journey was more like that. Like you feel you're succeeding, you fail, you shut down a company. When you shut down and have to lay off people, it's the most miserable feeling. Then we did a bootstrap company, things were going well. I was expecting kids, 2 twins, and lost one of the kids. And that is like misery, and like life becomes hell, right? And then as we bootstrapped to near 8 figures, we never wanted to raise, and then there was a lot of investor interest. And so we said we'll go down this hamster wheel and raise money. So we raise money, and the fundraise sucks the life out of you. So as an entrepreneur, your health takes a backseat, you're working 80, 100 hours a week, it's not healthy. You neglect your family, all of that stuff, right? And then you realize, like, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, right? If you keep sprinting, you're going to die. So you gotta prepare and pace yourself. There's this culture in Silicon Valley, I call it hustle porn. What that means is you're working 80, 100 hours a week, and everyone is crushing it until you get crushed. And founder suicide, mental health, all of these are real problems. I have friends who on TechCrunch and VentureBeat have raised hundreds of millions of dollars, but they're personally, as founders, miserable. Their health sucks, or they're going through a divorce, or they're just personally miserable. So I think it's very, very important to take care of yourself and brace yourself for this marathon, right? So that was the roller coaster. If 2 failed startups, then started succeeding, competing, the Boast was making revenue, then lost a kid, miserable, then came back, the company, life became normal, and we started fundraising. And I told my wife that, don't bother me for 6 months. I'm going to close this fundraise, and we're going to be great, and we're going to travel. We're going to make a trip. We're going to go to Tahiti. I'm going to take the whole family to Tahiti. And the fundraise sucks the life out of you. So I started smoking heavily, just working 24/7, getting all the data together. And this is in the middle of a pandemic, right? So 2020, you are stressed because you're trying to get customers and fundraise, and lots of uncertainty. And nonstop. And my wife's like, you're not spending time with the family, you're neglecting them, all of us. And I'm like, just wait. When the fundraise closes, we'll all go to Tahiti. Fundraise closes, I book flights to Tahiti. My wife's a physician, and I guess she brought some presents home. We all got COVID. And we all got COVID, but I got really serious. And my parents, who are in their 70s, got it. Everyone got it, but I got really serious. All that stress of working 80, 100 hours a week, plus probably the gene pool lottery, smoking, killed my immune system. And I was on oxygen, on bed, and I wasn't sure if I was going to live or die. My wife set up a Zoom 24/7, and I freaked out. And she called my co-founder, and she was crying, and I'm like, this is it. This is the end of the road for me, right? And that was my journey. I say, like, when I was bootstrapped, I was in good shape, and then VC-backed, like, my life got got out of shape, right? More companies and people die of indigestion than starvation, so it's important to stay lean. But more importantly, you start to realize, when I was in the hospital and almost dying, and you get delirious, you feel suicidal, your oxygen levels are down, you're on that mask. And I said to myself, if everything went to shit, if I died today, my only regret would be I didn't spend time with my family. Right? It's not the money in your bank, but the people around your tombstone that matter the most. And so my lesson 1 is you got to put your oxygen mask first. Self-care is never selfish. And this is before you start a company, anything. The chief operating officer at Atlassian, one of the most valuable B2B companies, is a good friend of mine. And she took a year off to go and do animal rehabilitation, spend time in Antarctica, came back, became the CEO. And she told me self-care is never selfish. It's good stewardship towards yourself and the only way you can create value in the world. So how did I get my life back together is doing a little bit better every single day, whether that's waking up and working out or swimming or playing a sport, being mindful, eating right. You can't build Rome in a day, right? But if you do a little bit every day, so sometimes you're lazy. You're like, I don't want to wake up. I just don't want to wake up. I don't want to do anything. Just get up. Just getting up out of bed and stepping out and walking is like the leading indicator to doing something else. So just doing that. Seeing a therapist is very underrated, but do it. It's helpful because you don't want your family and your friends to take your abuses, right? Talk to people. Set intentional boundaries. I deleted all the apps from my phone, LinkedIn, Twitter, everything, just so I can focus so my kids are like, oh, he's not on the phone all the time. And then trying to learn new things, whether it's reading or listening, trying new things, and traveling has really improved my mental condition and, of course, like dropped 40 pounds. So number one is prioritize self-care. Number two, when you're building a company, and this is, I think, one of the top reasons I see startups fail, is lack of alignment, right? It's very important to align around your purpose and your vision and your values to get people excited on the greater mission, right? Yes, so my company, Boast, we automate government funding for businesses. But that's not what we tell people. We tell people that we're on a mission to help innovators become successful because that is the end goal. Every dollar spent in innovation returns 20 to the universe. Vaccines, robots, clean drinking water. Yet 50% of the Fortune 500 companies have evaporated because they haven't innovated. And so this is a little framework that I stole from Map and Fire. Basically, it says, figure out your purpose, which is your forever. Why do we exist? Your vision, which is what will the company be as a result of your existence? What will the world look like? How do you do it today, like every day? And then your values, how do we behave? And the values are really, really important. When you're poor, sometimes you don't think of values, right? Like, okay, we're just going to get customers and pay to pay us for it, and we're going to raise money and whatnot. But the values are really important because if you don't align on values, it bites you later. So, for example, if you value transparency and you value impact, but the people you're partnering with value money and they value other things, it will cause friction. And that lack of values alignment, although it looks like fluff, will bite you. It becomes very, very hard to fix, even values with your employees. Number three thing is make sales your superpower. Selling is everything. And I'm an engineer, so I couldn't even, I remember the first time I picked up the phone to call somebody, I hung up like in 5 seconds. I first was building up this strength to even call them, and then when I called them, they like, hello, and I like just hung up. But selling is everything, right? You're not only selling to customers, you're selling to your family to let you do this startup. You're selling to employees when you have no money to join you. Why would they take a lower pay? Investors, media, selling is everything. And so, you do like with working out and health and everything, you just do a little bit every day and do it better and better. And so my hack there was I'd make 10 calls a day. Even when I'm on the bus or train or meeting people, without selling my company, I'm pitching my idea to them in a storytelling way, right? I called my friends who I knew were the best sales reps, and I went on calls with them or shadowed them on calls. And those three books have been life-saving. So if you get a chance, read Spin. I don't read. I hate reading, but those three, if I recommend a book, that means it's really good. Spin Selling, Made to Stick, and Pitch Anything are really good books. But ultimately, you can read as much as you want, and you only learn when you do. So keep doing, like make calls, evangelize people. Selling is the most important skill I found as a founder. Lesson 4, again, like I said, Rome wasn't built in a day. Don't boil the ocean. Build your startup in phases. So, and this is very, very important because your first phase as a founder, you have an idea. What do you need to do? You don't need a fancy website, and you don't need SEO and all of these things, you need to just get, let's say you're a B2B company, you need to validate the idea. You need 10 people to pay you to try it out, right? That's it. And so you pick up the phone, call people, leverage your network. The first phase is validation. If you have 10 people who say, you know what, your problem resonates with me, your solution resonates with me, I'm going to try it out, you can raise a seed round, in the US at least, right? And so the first phase is validation. The second is product market fit. What are you optimizing for? Engagement. Are people using the product? So they said as a validation that I have this problem, I'm going to try you out. But you don't have product market fit until every time they have that problem, they keep trying you out. They keep coming back to use your product. And so if you have high engagement, high retention, you can raise a Series A. Then you figure out a scalable, repeatable channel, whether it's sales, whether it's community, whether it's SEO, and you invest there on like figuring out this repeatability of how do you grow your customer base, and you can raise a Series B there. By then, you get to 3 million. And then the last phase is scale, where you figured out this repeatable, scalable channel. You have one customer, one market, and you invest 75% of your energy putting fuel on fire and 25% on trying new things. Now, where most founders, they ignore is you kind of go through those phases, right? Validation, product market fit, then scale. But then when they figure out, okay, now I want to go to the UK market, I want to go somewhere else, they don't go through that same phase of validation, product market fit. They immediately go and start investing, and they're like, oh, I got to fire my whole sales team. Like what's happening right now, lots of companies raised a ton of money. I angel invest, advise a ton of companies, and they raised during the pandemic when the valuations were inflated. They built massive sales teams to target new markets, and then they didn't go through the validation. They went directly to scale, and now they're laying off. Like if you see every day, 30%, 25% layoffs. It's because they went to scale on a new idea before they even validated, right? And so most companies increase the fat by 30%. So don't do that. Like follow this framework for everything, at least if you're in the B2B space. Lesson 5 was go slow to go fast, right? There's this empty calories of growth. And, everyone wants a growth hack, right? If you look at Hotmail, they added this PS I love you, get your free email at Hotmail and got 12 million users. Or Airbnb jump-started growth by cross-posting to Craigslist. Everyone's asking, oh, what's the growth hack, right? And, Elon Musk is great at a bunch of things and not so great at a bunch of things, but he has this famous quote which says, don't reason with analogy, reason from first principles. And so what is success ultimately, right? You have engaged users that pay you, and you keep growing that cycle. People try you out, they're engaged, they keep coming back, they pay you, and you're successful. So my previous company, Speakeasy, we failed. We had 10,000 users at launch. And for a B2B product, that is insanity. It's a business product for salespeople. And we failed. When I looked at the user base, it was a calling app for salespeople. But when I looked at the user base, there were butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers using it. Bernie Sanders was using it for election campaigning. Priests were using it to run mass service. And that's when I knew we're going to fail. And I realized then that don't invest in growth if you don't have an ideal use case, an ideal customer, ideal use case, one kind of user coming to your product to get a job done, and you have poor retention, meaning anytime they want to get that job done, they don't keep coming back. Because what happens if you don't have engagement and retention, they'll just leave, and you'll spend lots and lots and lots of money. So if you don't have engagement and retention, focus on fixing that first. Serve one audience exceptionally well, and I talked about this a bunch, your ideal customer profile, right? Figuring out who are they, where do they eat, breathe, drink, sleep, what outcomes. Customers are looking for an outcome. They're looking for a job to get done. They're not looking to buy software. So how do they do those tasks today? What are they jangling together to get that done? And how do you deliver the delighted state? How can you cut out unnecessary steps? And you can use data to nail this. So my previous company, Automatically, it was a chatbot for customer service people. And so how do you do this with data? I said, okay, we're going to go after 2 markets, and we're going to go after customer service leaders in large enterprises, big brands. And then we'll go after customer service leaders in in technology companies. And so you figure out how big is the market, what your hypothesis is on their propensity to pay. Do you think they'll pay or not? How likely are they to pay? And then ease of access, how easy it is. And this is a very common framework in product. It's called RICE. Like, what is the reach? What is the impact? What is your confidence? And what is the ease, right? So how big is the market? How likely are they to pay? What is the ease of access? Then I used a mechanical Turk, like some worker in India, to mine the lists, and cold emailed and cold called them till I got success in one, and then just double down. So you can even figuring out your ICP, you can take a very data-driven approach. Again, if you're in the B2B space particularly, right? So once you have that ICP nailed down, then you're like, okay, how do I dominate the circle of influence around this ideal customer? So you can figure out who do they fund, follow, and frequent. So who do they fund, meaning what tools do I pay for? So at Boast, our target market is the founder CEO of a technology company in the US and Canada. So they pay for MongoDB and Stripe, and what do they frequent? They read TechCrunch and VentureBeat and X blogs, and who do they follow? They listen to other entrepreneurs and VCs. So how do we target them? We started hosting very targeted events, and we would invite CEOs of big name companies like Twilio to speak, and media like TechCrunch, and the sponsors at those events would be folks like Intercom and MongoDB. And so when the founder ideal customer comes to that, we get the social proof of their circle of influence. So once you have that ICP, if you want to dominate that sphere, figure out who their circle of influence is. Nail it, then scale it. Especially in B2B SaaS, you can build to 10, 15, 20 million in revenue, focusing on one customer, coming through one channel, getting one offering. It's very underrated because as founders, we want to add more and more and more shiny objects. But particularly when you're bootstrap, your focus will save you. One customer, one channel, one offering. So I'm not sure how many of you know Hiten Shah here. He's very famous in SaaS. So he was an advisor in my previous company, Speakeasy. He comes to the office one day and he says, hey, show me your marketing plan. And my whole team is there. So I show him something like this. And he sinks in his chair and he goes red in his face and he's like, burn those fucking slides down. And I'm so embarrassed. And he says, you're going to fail if you do this. And I said, why? He said, because you need to focus. You're doing too many things and you'll be good at nothing. So he asked me, what's the one thing that's working? I said, cold emailing. But it's not really working, so I'm trying other things. He's like, how many emails are you sending a day? 50? He said, send 500, send 5,000, jam more data, exhaust one channel, be good at one thing. And Peter Thiel, the famous founder of PayPal and VC, he has this quote which says, if you do many things and you're mediocre, you're doomed. But if you kill it on one distribution channel, you can build a big company, right? And the same thing with your distribution channel. This is a very, very important product framework. How many people is going to reach? What is the impact, confidence, and the effort involved? And you can prioritize. So at Boast, we built a community. We were competing with large accounting firms like KPMG, PwC, Lloyed, etc. And when you're cold calling and cold emailing founder CEOs of technology companies and the only players in the market are the big four accounting firms, they don't even want to look at your face. And so we built this massive community. Today it's 110,000 subscribers. We started hosting pizza nights and inviting, like if you looked at that ICP, fund, frequent, follow, we'd invite big name speakers. And 10 people would show up, then 20, and one day hundreds of people started showing up, and then now it's a podcast, 2 podcasts a week, webinars, we got a few million views on YouTube, and we do conferences. But this community led us to bootstrap the company because then people would be like, oh, Twilio CEO is coming to their events. So these guys are legit. You get the brand rub or the social proof of the people coming to your community events. And so we hyper-focused on community at Boast, which enabled us to bootstrap. We hired last year in a span of 9 months, 90 people without having an external recruiter. So that social proof from that community helped us. And then we layered on sales development there. I'm going to skip over this. Lesson 8 was make it stick. You know, sometimes in B2B, you can build a sticky product by building a shitty product that everyone uses, right? Like, I mean, Salesforce maybe, But outside of that, there's this concept of mounting loss and accruing benefits. And what that means is the more I use the product, the better it gets, like more relevant. Or the more I use the product, the more I would lose if I were to leave. And so like with Instagram, you have this massive social following, your feed gets better and better, and you're hooked, right? Or with Evernote, the more notes you add, the more value you get, so you don't want to leave. So see how you can add that into your product to make it sticky, mounting loss and accruing benefits. Lesson 9 is show up consistently. Cadence is highly undervalued in the world, right? We do one webinar and we stop, or we say something and we stop, or we give investor updates. But then as soon as the world goes to shit or we have a bad quarter, we stop getting investor updates. I'm on a bunch of angel investments, and I see all the good news. Now, in the last 4 months, I stopped getting updates from 80% of the companies. But Cadence builds trust, especially in tough times, right? What is your job as a founder? Vision, culture. People build companies, not the other way around, right? And culture is a leading indicator of growth. Communication, constant communication, going in front of people and constantly exciting them on your vision, mission, your values is very, very important. Recruiting, you're spending a bulk of your time, a third of your time recruiting, talking to investors, and being the go-to person when things go south. And so that is really important. Showing up consistently is required, and communication is required. It's a little bit of our team. We do an annual offsite. We're a fairly remote company in probably 10 different cities. And so we take the company somewhere fun every year, Cabo, Costa Rica, Hawaii. Every year we get together. More Swiss Army knives. I think after the raise, I realized this, that if you keep promoting people based on their experience or tenure versus trajectory, meaning what they can do, like their potential, you'll become the thing that you're setting out to disrupt. And so, as founders, when you go from validation to product market fit, product channel fit, and scale, as a founder, you're an individual contributor. You're a doer. And when you raise money or when you grow, your immediate reaction is, oh, I want to be a CEO. But you're not really. You're an individual contributor. And so when you go from validation to product market fit to scale, your first job is to be a manager and then become a VP and then become an executive. And so, what I found is that you need to have this doing culture, and if you abstract to being C-suite, you'll lose that doing culture, and that'll slow you down. So hang on to your jack of all trades, hang on to more Swiss Army knives, hold people accountable to your values, right? Values are really, really important in the early days, like I said, and then as you scale, that scales, and you can hold people accountable to them. And the last one I love is hire slow and fire fast. Take your time to align on values, but then if they're not meeting your values and they're not performing, don't make excuses, especially for high-paid executives. Fire fast. When you hire big company executives in a small startup, they want to build big teams, and you're going to lose your speed. Culture, what I realized is there's 6 things people crave. Connection, right? It's like riding, I don't know how many people have seen the Peloton or one of these bikes with the dashboard on the side, but people crave connection. They want to be connected to people. They want autonomy. You don't want somebody to micromanage you. They want to get better and better at their jobs, so mastery. They want to be attached to a great sense of purpose. We're in the great resignation. People are leaving jobs because they can work as freelancers or drive an Uber and do Instacart and do 10 other things, right, and make money. So they crave purpose. They want to be energized, and they want to be recognized. So if you have this, I call this the camper framework. If you embed this camper proactively in your company, connection, autonomy, mastery, purpose, energy, recognition, you will have people in your company for the long haul. And then the last lesson is obsessing about leading indicators. A lot of people say, you know what? What is your NPS score? What is the employee net promoter score? What is the CSAT? If you are looking at CSAT and NPS 3 months later, it's too late. Watch the engagement. Watch the retention. Watch your employee happiness. walk the halls, look at your customer data, watch the leading indicators. Like with sales, right? You can look at, I didn't hit my sales quota end of the month. But really what you want to look at is how many calls are you making? So if it takes 10 calls to get one meeting and it takes 10 meetings to close a deal, then you want to watch the leading indicators. If you watch the leading indicators, you can tell if you're going to hit that number or not. And in a bootstrap company, you have to obsess about the leading indicators. Some frameworks of metrics that you should watch this is very popular, our Pirate metric framework from 500 startups. Talks about acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, and referral. What it's saying is, how do you get people in the door? How do you get them to try it out? How do you get them to stay? How do you get them to pay? And how do you get them to bring their friends? All right, I'm 4 minutes over, but that's the takeaways. And ultimately, if your employees are happy, customers are happy, and you don't want to run out of money, you'll build a big company. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lloyd.